Well, hello everybody. I was trying to think of something we could do for Christmas, and I came up with something I've never had before. I've heard about it a couple of times, but I've never actually did it myself. So that's what we're going to do today. First, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 400. And I got to get my aluminum foil. I always forget something. I always forget my aluminum foil or something out of the cabinet. But I got my aluminum foil. And you need about a 10 by 15 inch at least pan to do this in. I'm not sure the size on this one. But you want to line it with tin foil. Because you don't want our Christmas crack to stick to the pan. And just do the best you can, you know, to line the whole bottom of it. And then we're going to spray it. I'm very disorganized. With a little bit of, it's butter flavored spray oil. And I probably put way too much in there. And then we're just going to set this aside for right now. I'm working on my, getting my ingredients together for my caramel, as they call it. Which consists, you can use dark brown sugar, 1 cup. Or if you have light brown sugar like I have, I'm going to use 1 cup, but I'm going to pack it down to make sure I have enough. So that's what I'm here doing now, is I'm measuring out a cup of brown sugar, but I'm packing it down quite a bit in my cup, so I know I've got a good cup full of it. I've got 2 sticks of butter, which will equal 1 cup of butter to 1 cup of brown sugar, packed brown sugar. You'll need a package of chocolate chips. You can add the Townhouse butterscotch to it as well, if you like. It's up to you. And I'm going to also top it with almonds. And I don't have chopped almonds. And I only need about a ½ cup. But guess what? I got a coffee grinder here. And I'm going to try chopping my almonds in my coffee grinder. I think that worked out pretty good. So if you got one of these little coffee grinders at home, and I'll need a little spoon or something to get all of that out of there. Maybe use this. But what that will hold is basically a half a cup of chopped almonds. If I can get them all out of here. So if you've got a coffee grinder at home, that equals a half a cup of chopped almonds, and that's what I need, half a cup. That's going to go on the topping. Now I'm going to need my saltine crackers. And I'm opening the wrong end, I think. I don't guess it matters. Usually the thing breaks apart anyway. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to get the most expensive crackers. This is Walmart store brand, which is cheaper than, you know, the name brand. But it's basically the same cracker. You need about 1 sleeve of saltines. But I like putting a new twist on my stuff, so. And all we're going to do, let me move this out of the way so you can see, is I'm basically, I think you can see my pan. I'm going to just lay my saltine crackers in a row and fill up the whole pan. And it should take about a sleeve, maybe a little bit more, I don't know. First time I've ever made it in this pan here particularly, because it's been a long time since I've made any of this kind of stuff. We'll see how even my pan is according to laying out these saltines. But this is easy to make, y'all. And see, this one pan is basically going to fill up, this one sleeve is basically going to fill up my pan. You want to push them together. We try not to have space between them. But if we do, that's okay too. And I probably don't need to do that. But I'm just going to set this aside right here and leave it. We're going to put in our 1 cup of brown sugar packed. So we know we've got at least 1 cup. I'm going to put in my butter. I may get a knife and just cut this in half because it might melt faster if I have it in cubes instead of the whole stick. And again, that's 2 sticks of the butter because that does equal 1 cup. But that's a real handy thing to know. If you've got a coffee grinder, you can grind your nuts in it. Makes it real easy. Now, I'm going to transfer my pot over to my stove. Get my almonds out of the way because we don't need this bag of almonds anymore. And I don't want to catch my bag on fire. That's the last thing I need for Christmas is a Christmas fire in my house. Now, I don't mind it if it's outside, but not in here. But we're going to turn the burner on. On kind of a low heat. We don't want this to boil, but we do want it to melt and kind of start bubbling up a little. And that's all. We don't want it to, we're not cooking it. We're just melting the butter and mixing our butter in with our sugar. Sometimes if you cook things too long, it doesn't work. So, and I did make a mess with my nuts over here. And I'll deal with that later. But I did want to get some of the nuts up because I didn't want them falling in the floor. While that's warming up just a tiny bit, I'm going to go ahead and cut the end off of my chocolate chips. And off of my caramel. Now, you don't have to use caramel. You know me, I don't stick to recipes. I kind of do my own thing. And I'm not even going to use that whole bag. I'm making sure my camera's still running. It takes a minute to melt the butter. Now you say, why didn't I melt the butter before I put it in there? Well, it's because I don't want to melt it in the microwave. I want to melt it in my pot so it turns out right. Yeah, you just want to bring it to a low boil and let it boil, simmer for just a few minutes. But you got to get it melted first and get it all stirred up. Like I said, it's not going to take long to do it. Yeah, it's starting to get to liquid now, the sugar is. use my spatula, I think. I don't like scraping the bowl with the pot with the spoon. It sounds like you're scraping sandpaper or something, and kind of makes my skin crawl. Like I said, we're just going to melt all the butter. We're going to let it come to a low boil and just boil it for a couple of minutes. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Now, this is just a basic recipe for Christmas crack. You can add so many things to this when you're making it. Like, you can add mini marshmallows to your topping. That would be so neat. You know, it's so warm today that I had to turn the heat off. And it's a little warm here at this oven since I turned it on. Get me something wet my throat. But what we're doing right now is making the caramel that's going to go on the cookies or on the saltines. There, it's all melted. We just need to bring that to a boil. I'm going to find me a cough drop. I hate to cough all my way through a video, I'll tell you. People that have allergies, don't have allergies, do not know how lucky they are. Especially when you live in a place like I do, where I'm allergic to everything. Okay, it's starting to boil just a little bit. But this will thoroughly dissolve the sugar and mix into the butter, and it will make a caramel that we're going to pour on our crackers. Okay. And now I'm just going to try to pour it on my crackers without getting it everywhere. And my crackers are starting to move. We don't want that to happen. I need it poured in something really to pour it out. Because it's not cooperating pouring it out of the pot. So you might want to just pour it into a cup, a measuring cup, or any type of a glass heat-proof cup. And pour it in that way. And I'm going to get every bit of that caramel out. Make sure my crackers are covered with it, because it's kind of hard to pour it out. Making sure you get it on every one of them. But I think that's good enough. Now what we're going to do is put it in our 400-degree heated oven for, we're going to bake it in the oven for 5 minutes. See what time it is. Okay, almost 5. And make sure you have a mitten ready to, get it out. I'm also going to lay these mittens on my table so I don't burn my table when I take it out of the oven, because I'm just going to sit it on these mittens. They'll act as a hot plate, like a plate to set them on to keep them cool. To keep my table from burning. If that makes any sense. I'm kind of babbling this morning. But yeah, at this point you can mix a little butterscotch in with it like I'm going to do. Then you can top with pecans, or you can use walnuts. You can use almonds like I did. Like I crushed my almonds. You can get the little mini marshmallows, the different colors are all white, and kind of sprinkle them on the top while it's still hot. And there's a lot of variations you can do. I'm just doing the basic one, and I may add a little bit of butterscotch. I'm not sure about that yet. But we're going to let that cook. Yeah, whoever would have thought if you had a little coffee grinder, which I hardly ever use. I used to buy Vanilla Beans coffee, and I used to ground my own coffee. And this little container grinder will grind enough coffee for one big pot of coffee, 12 cups. So I would grind my Vanilla Bean coffee in my little grinder and make my pot of coffee. I don't really do that much anymore because I don't drink that much coffee, and I don't have anybody else here that drinks that much coffee. I drink about 1 cup a day. But, I have this on hand because, like I said, it's great if you need some way to crush your walnuts, your pecans, your almonds without going through so much hassle trying to chop them up. Just throw them in your little grinder and you got crushed almonds. And it'll just be another minute or two and we'll get that out. I always keep 2 mittens around, because I never know when I need to do this. Now, this is one thing, when you take it out, you got to have your chocolate chips ready. You got to have your butterscotch or whatever you're going to put on there chocolate-wise, because you got to melt the chocolate. We're using chocolate chips, so when we put them on this hot caramel and crackers, it's going to immediately start to melt our chocolate. And our butterscotch. Which like I said, I'm going to mix it up a little. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of butterscotch in it. Not much, not a whole bag or anything like that. I'm just going to add a little bit for flavor in my chocolate. Plus my crushed pecans. I mean, not my crushed walnuts. And it's not even crushed walnuts, y'all. It's crushed almonds. What is wrong with me today, y'all? I think I need to go back to bed and get up again. I know what it was. I didn't sleep last night, so I'm not all here today. But y'all just bear with me and we'll get this done. I'm going to sit here a minute and we'll just talk and while we're waiting for our crackers to cook for the 5 minutes. We only got another minute or two. But how inexpensive is this? You don't have to use nuts if you got them on hand, or you can afford to buy a package of nuts. It's great to put them on there. But all you really need is your cup of brown sugar, your cup of butter, and a bag of chocolate chips. And this is a 11.5 ounce bag of chocolate chips. And this is a great value as well. So any of the kids would love this as a treat for Christmas or even New Year's. And it's something they could basically help you make themselves. If they're teenagers, they could make it themselves as long as they're careful and they don't burn themselves. But yeah, your gloves and your little pot holders, they come in good as heat mats. You know, to keep from putting hot things on your table. Because you don't want to burn your table. So, okay, I think we can check on them and see what's going on. Yeah, it's bubbling up real good, so we're going to get that out of there. Ooh. And I'm going to need my other glove. Because guess what? My wafers are moving. I'm going to have to straighten my wafers up right quick. They wasn't supposed to do that. But I wasn't supposed to slide them either. I mean, you know, pick them up and slant the pan. Oh my goodness. This is terrible. We don't want it to all melt. I mean, get hard before we get our chocolate on there. But things like this happen when you're cooking. And my pan is kind of warped, so all the caramels go into the center. That's why I wanted to make sure that I got each one of the crackers covered before I put them in the oven. This is terrible, y'all. But even the best laid plans will change sometimes. Look at this. Man. And I was going to show you how to do this. I'm not really the person to show you, am I? But I'm just showing you what can happen as well, so. And they don't have to be exact. I just need one of them crackers here in this line. Because you can put it back in the oven and warm it up again if it gets too hard on you. Now, I'm going to sprinkle in my chocolate chips. And if it starts getting too cold on you, don't worry about it, because you can always pop it back in the oven and get it a little hot to melt your chips. So if this happens to you, you know, your crackers slide on you and your pan is not quite even, don't worry about it. Now I'm going to just sprinkle in a few of these butterscotch, not many, but I want a few of them in there. I'm going to put in my nuts. Now I'm going to let it sit there and see if they start to melt. And I dropped a few in the floor. I don't want to step on them. If I see them, I'll get them up. I don't want to step on them because they'll melt in the floor, get on your shoes, and then you'll be tracking it everywhere. That may have been the only ones I dropped, maybe two. But anyway, like I said, let it set for a few minutes to see if it's going to melt. It may have cooled off too much on me. I'm going to turn my oven back on because I did turn it off, just in case. I think I'm going to pop it back in the oven just a minute or so and melt those down. I'm going to use 2 gloves this time. And I'm not going to leave them in there long, but I am going to leave them in there hopefully long enough that they'll melt. There's the other one. I dropped it on the table. See, I used about half of the butterscotch. And like I said, you don't have to use the butterscotch. The chocolate alone is enough. But I'm just mixing mine up, making it a little bit different. Put a little bit of a butterscotch flavor in there. And we got to get the chocolate and the butterscotch melted because we got to spread it out over our crackers. Don't need to leave it in there too long, but we do need to get it melted. Let's see how my time is on my camera. I'm chewing on cough drop. I love Christmas time. I had a couple more in the bag and I didn't even know it. Just throw them in there. Yeah, it's heating up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back off because I just need it to get hot enough to melt that butter. I mean, melt those chocolate chips and the butterscotch. And that oven should be plenty hot enough to get it hot enough to melt it. I think it's probably already at the point where it's melting now, but I'm just going to make sure. Because you know, even when you turn your ovens off, it still is hot. It's hot enough to melt the chocolate. Get hold of my pan. Precious. Put it on my mat so I don't burn my stove, my table. Yeah, it wasn't quite melted enough. So you know what? I'm going to put it back in there and I'm going to make sure it does melt. Whew, put it on 400. And we're going to heat this baby up. Because we got to get our chocolate and butterscotch melted. the fact that my crackers moved on me, let my caramel and my crackers cool off too much. So you have to be real careful getting them out of your oven, keeping them perfectly flat so they don't do like I just did and let them move. So you got to spend all that time shoveling them around and straightening them out and putting them back where they ought to be. So don't worry about it if that happens, because just straighten them back out, put your chocolate chips on, put your nuts or whatever topping you want on. And if it's cooled off too much, just pop it back in the oven like I'm doing and melt your chocolate. It'll just take you another minute or two, and that's all. They'll still be good, I promise. I got to eat one of these butterscotch. I'm sitting here with this bag open in front of me, and it smells so good. Mmm. That is going to be so good mixed up with that chocolate. Mmm. And you can even sprinkle a little bit of sea salt on top of it all, because the saltiness with the sweetness is so good together. Oh my God. So good. You'll definitely end up overeating this, I'll tell you. You'll start eating it and you can't stop till all of it's gone. It's addicting, just like popcorn. You can't stop till the bottom of the bowl, bottom of the bowl, or you get to the bottom of the bag and there is no more. So see, I told you that in my cooking videos, I'm going to show you everything, even my bloopers. You know, most cooks that do the videos, they would have cut this part out and just show you the perfect way that they did it. Well, not me, because I know it don't usually happen that way. There's always unforeseen things that happen when you're cooking. Things can go wrong. Just like my crackers moved on me when I tried to get them out of the oven because I was not holding it flat. And I'm going to show you all that. And the reason I do is because I want you to know that if that happens, don't freak out. Don't worry about it. You haven't lost your crack, so to speak. It can be fixed, just like I'm doing. Just put it back in the oven, heat it up till your chocolate and your butterscotch melts, and you're good. Might take a little bit longer than I anticipated since I did turn the oven off, but yeah, but this is such a good candy to have for Christmas. Hopefully I'm going to take some to my son's house for New Year's. Because like I said, we're not getting together on Christmas because everybody couldn't get together. Some of the family had to work. So we're going to get together New Year's Eve. And we're going to celebrate Christmas and New Year's together. So I'm hoping to take some of this Christmas crack to my sons. And I'm going to tell him, son, I brought you some Christmas crack, and get his response to that. Because, I mean, if you didn't know it was a candy, what would you think? You know, when somebody said, well, I brought you some Christmas crack. Or I made you some Christmas crack. I don't know. We never had this kind of stuff when I was growing up. I guess it's mostly because my parents didn't have the money to buy all the ingredients, you know, to fix all this different candy and stuff like that. I mean, I remember Mama making brownies and fudge and our peanut butter cookies, our oatmeal cookies, and sometimes it was oatmeal and raisin cookies. And I remember her always cooking our own donuts. She had a pot that she would deep fry our donuts in, that she hand mixed herself. And they were so good. And sometimes she'd fill them full of jellies and jams and whipped cream, stuff like that. And they were so good, you couldn't have gotten a better donut if you'd have bought it at the donut shop. I promise you. Because we didn't have a bakery or anything like that in my town, my hometown. It was just a crossroad town, little bitty place. Wasn't even a grocery store there. You had to drive 15 miles away to get to a Piggly Wiggly, which was the only grocery store close by. Things have changed a lot nowadays, you know. They're not like they used to be. Now it's starting to bubble a little bit, so I know it's melting. I don't want to burn it, but I do want it to melt. I'm going to stick my spatula in there and just see. Well, no, it's still not melted enough. Oh, I'm fighting the urge to just lick the end of that. And like I said, you don't have to use nuts. You don't have to use butterscotch. If you got a cup of brown sugar, a cup of butter, one package of these chocolate chip chocolate chips, just milk chocolate chips, and so a sleeve of saltine crackers. That's all you need to make the basic recipe of this. Trying to get that so I don't put it down where it's going to stick on something. Whew. Turning it around because it was getting hotter at one side than it was the other. And I really have to do much spreading with this because it's already spread out. But the ideal thing was to just spread it out, but I don't really need to do that. It's melted. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of salt, not much. Now, you don't have to do this. So, I mean, even as long as it's been in there, the chocolate is melted, but it's not going to let you spread it like they say. I mean, you needed the semi-sweet chocolate. Now, I'm going to let that cool, and I'll bring you back and show you when I break it apart. Well, if a lot of you may have noticed in my video, I used milk chocolate chips in my Christmas crack. You're really supposed to use semi-sweet. Semi-sweet. It melts better. That's why I was having trouble with it. But no problem, because what I've done is I've added a bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. I ground up a few more of my nuts, and I put them on there. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of salt because the nuts are not salted. And that is sea salt, y'all. I'm going to put it in my oven just long enough to heat those chocolate chips up to melt them. So, we've got our crackers. We've got our caramel. We've got a half a bag of butterscotch chips in there. We've got a bag of milk chocolate with nuts, and now I've added another bag of milk chocolate, not milk chocolate, but semi-sweet that you're supposed to put in there, semi-sweet, on the top. And then I sprinkled with a little bit more of my crushed almonds, and I'm going to put it back in my oven just long enough to melt those chocolate chips, which will not take long. And I'm going to show you how to turn what could have been a disaster into something really good. Something probably better than you would have had if you'd have done it the original way. Because like I say, I don't stick to recipes. I do my own thing when it comes to baking or cooking. And that's basically what they did years ago when they came up with the recipes, you know. Everybody had to start somewhere. So, we're making Christmas crack like you've never had before. And I got some walnuts in my mouth. Yeah, so the original recipe is 1 cup of brown sugar, dark brown sugar, but you can use light, just pack it in. 1 cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. 1 sleeve of saltine crackers. And you saw me how I melted my butter down in my sugar to make our caramel. We poured that over our crackers. And then we let that cook for about 5 minutes to help it caramelize. And then we put our chocolate chips on top. And then you can sprinkle in your nuts. And that's a basic recipe. But like I did, I put milk chocolate in there. So now I'm going over it again, and I'm going to put the semi-sweet chocolate on top with some more nuts and just a little bit of salt. And it should be really good. So don't think, you failed if it doesn't go exactly the way you think it's going in your recipe. You can always turn it around and make something better out of it. And it doesn't take long for the semi-chocolate to melt because there's no milk in there. It's just basically chocolate and sugar. But it does mean getting your pan heated up again. Let's see, I'm going to use my spatula if I can find it. See if it's melted enough to spread them. I'm going to let it heat up even more, because I'm going to come back and put, I think, some more of these chocolate chips on there. The semi-sweet. And y'all, you don't really even have to spread the chocolate chips. They will melt and spread out on their own. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to wait and see how it does before I open that other bag. I may not put any more chocolate on it, or I may. I just don't know right yet. I may put a little more on. You know, it's so warm today. It's like summer out there. And this is Christmas weekend. I mean, I was running around just like this. I didn't have a sweater or jacket or anything on. And it's actually hot to me out there. I'm hot in here. I've got my heat turned off, which is a good thing. Set in there for just a minute or two, and then I'll take it out. And it's going to be hot all over again, so we need to keep something on your table or your counter to put your hot pan on. Get hold of this. Isn't that looking good, y'all? I think it's looking real good. And I might just throw a few more on there, not many. There's a few places I didn't get much chocolate, so. I'm not making fudge this year, y'all, so this is going to be my candy for the Christmas. Like I said, I'll try to save some for my son for when I go over there. You can keep it in the refrigerator for 2 weeks or a little bit longer. You can keep it sitting out for a couple of days, as long as you don't have it where it's hot. And since I put more on there, I'm going to go ahead and put it back in here and let it heat up a little more. And then we're going to take it out. I'm just going to leave it in there a few minutes to let the chocolate melt. I don't think I'm going to stir it up. I'm just going to leave it. Let it melt and spread out on its own. And then I'm going to take it out. I'm going to let it cool. When it cools enough, I will put it in my refrigerator and leave it for an hour or two. And then I'm going to take it out and I'll show you how I'm going to break it apart. Or hopefully I will if I have time. Well, I'm back. And I not only put the Christmas crack in the refrigerator, but I put it in the freezer for a little bit. It does have a little bit of ice on it that I need to just brush off, because I don't want water on my Christmas crack. But see how that aluminum foil just pulls away from the crack itself. Now it's going to be a little bit harder to break apart since it's thick, because you know I added even more chocolate to it than originally was planned. But it comes loose from the bottom. And since it's frozen, I don't know if I'm going to be able to crack it. As thick as it is. But I'll tell you what, I'll find something to crack it with, because mine is extremely thick. We got the trusty old hammer. I'll just clean it off. But you know, I'm handling food. I don't want anything on it to be dirty. So, woo! See? Christmas crack. That looks so good, I'll tell you it does. I mean, look at this, y'all. You got the cracker on the bottom with the caramel. You got the chocolate, the almonds ground up. Don't that look good, y'all? And don't worry, it's not going to be frozen to eat it. Normally, you wouldn't have to do this if I'd have not put quite as much chocolate on it. But it's like twice as thick as normal. So I'm having to break it apart with something. Even the little pieces are good. You don't want to get rid of any of those pieces. Have to hit it harder than I thought, because it is so thick, you know. Like I said, if I had not made it as thick as I did, or if it was not frozen, it would be easier to crack. Now you see why they call it Christmas crack. But I'm going to leave some in a big chunk, you know. Because when it's not frozen, it's not going to be hard to bite into. And I will be keeping it in the refrigerator until I take some to my sons. Because like I said, it'll keep for two weeks or longer in the refrigerator. And you can freeze it and keep it frozen until you get ready to take it wherever you're going to take it. And that's about all I'm going to be able to get in there. Maybe some of the little pieces. It does make a little bit of a mess because, you know, it throws crumbs everywhere. Like I said, if you don't freeze it, it won't be this hard to break. But I wanted to freeze mine because it was kind of thick. Whoop. I mean, this is something you would probably only fix once a year. And I'm going to put that little bit in a smaller container. And I might just munch on some of it, you know, through Christmas. hard to break when it's frozen. Put it in there like that. Break it in small enough pieces that I can handle it. And like I said, once it thaws out, it'll be easier to break. So if you don't want to do like I'm doing for the sake of the video, and I'm just going to pour all those crumbs in there. Because believe you me, even the crumbs of Christmas crack is good. And I gotta taste it. That is good, y'all. But there you go. I got stuff all over the table. I got it all over the floor. But I need to clean the kitchen floor anyway, so it's all right. But there you go. Christmas crack like you've never had it before, with butterscotch and almonds. And you might want to try it and not freeze it. Or if you do want to freeze it like I do and just take a hammer and break it apart, that's fine. It'll break a lot easier if it's not frozen. But for time's sake, I froze it and went ahead and broke it apart with a hammer. I'm crazy anyway. And y'all love watching my stupid stuff, so, hey, that's a good recipe right there, so try it. It just shows you everything doesn't go according to a recipe or as planned sometimes, but this is even better Christmas crack than just the basic recipe. So try it. You will love it. And like I said, it'll keep for 2 weeks in the refrigerator. It'll keep for several days out on the counter as long as it's not hot out. If it's in a cool room, because it will melt. Or part of it will melt. Or, you know, you can keep it in the freezer for indefinitely almost until you get ready to use it. So there you go. There's my Christmas crack. Y'all have a blessed Christmas. I'll see you on my next one. Bye now. Love y'all.